Well, it doesn't matter what you think because the Liberals under Justin Trudeau are moving full steam ahead with their mass immigration agenda, by any means necessary. This includes putting nearly 500,000 illegal immigrants on a path to citizenship here in this country. Nothing quite like rewarding those who break the law. It also includes granting citizenship to foreigners born to a foreign-born Canadian citizen. Don't worry, we will get into all the details of that later on in the show. And of course, it also includes doubling the number of refugees Canada will receive from Gaza. I'm sure they will perfectly assimilate into Canadian culture and quickly adopt Canadian values. What could possibly go wrong with this? Now, there is no mandate for this. There never was. Canadians don't want this, and to be quite honest, we're full. But it was never about what you wanted. Sure, you were never asked before the government decided to ruin your country, but they don't actually care about how you feel. This is what gets them votes. This is how the Liberals can dilute your voting power and guarantee future electoral success. Now, they'll still call you a conspiracy theorist for daring to say that, but at this point, who cares what they have to say? Before we get into the show, drop a like in the video, help us out by subscribing to the True North YouTube channel, stick around for the ratio of the week, and the comment question for the episode is this. Do you support granting amnesty to 500,000 illegals in Canada? Let me know your answer in the comments below, and let's get into it. Well, as if the immigration situation in Canada couldn't possibly get more absurd than it already is, earlier this week, a group of radical activists who call themselves the Migrant Rights Network were on Parliament Hill demanding that the federal government grant amnesty to illegal immigrants in this country to give them permanent residency and put them on the path to Canadian citizenship.
A broad regularization program means that people can now contribute to the fullest potential to Canada's economic and social future. We, the Canadian Labour Congress, call on the government to do what is right. Bring in regularization now.
None of this should come as a surprise to Canadians who have been paying close attention to what's been going on with immigration in this country. In December of 2023, it was announced that the federal government was indeed planning to put 500,000 illegals on a path to citizenship. As the article from December in the Globe and Mail states, there are an estimated 300,000 to 600,000 people living in the country without valid documents. Many have been working here for decades and have children but risk deportation because they lack formal status. This plan actually came from Justin Trudeau's office back in 2021 in a mandate letter sent to former immigration minister Sean Fraser. So while the federal government had this open borders policy of rapidly expanding the international student program, the temporary foreign worker program, and non-permanent resident pathways, they had this plan brewing in the works the entire time to grant permanent residency to illegals. Of course, before this woman decided to call for granting illegals residency status in this country, she first had to remind us of her pronouns and that she's speaking to us from the never surrendered territory of the Algonquin people.
I'm speaking to you from the unceded and never surrendered territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabeg peoples, and my pronouns are she, her, elle.
So in the same breath, she's saying Canada is stolen land and that she wants to let hundreds of thousands of illegals live on this stolen land. Unfortunately, I'm not allowed to use the words that would accurately describe the way I feel about people who advocate for these policies.
If I speak, I am in big trouble.
That being said, I can't stop you from describing how you feel about these policies in the comments below. Remember how the federal government tried to make this push a few months ago to slow down the non-permanent resident growth in this country, when Justin Trudeau told us that the non-permanent resident population growth in Canada was faster than the country could absorb? When Immigration Minister Mark Miller said that temporary foreign workers are undercutting the wages of Canadians? Well, the new data that we have shows that all of that talk from the Liberals was just a way to cover for an increase in population growth again. Population growth in Canada in the first 4 months of 2024 was 47% higher than it was in 2023, previously a record. According to the National Bank of Canada, the demographic shock is getting worse in Canada. The working age population, 15 and over, rose by over 100,000 in April, bringing the total to over 410,000 after 4 months in 2024. This represents a sharp acceleration on the 278,000 increase recorded in the first 4 months of 2023. In the Greater Toronto Area alone, the population change between the first 4 months of 2023 and 2024 was 66%. Don't forget that last year we were reminded by an RBC economist that that the federal government has likely undercounted the number of non-permanent residents living in Canada by 1 million. What's remarkable is that the Migrant Rights Network, the group that is calling on the government to, quote, regularize illegals, that just means give them permanent residency, they don't even know the number of illegals in this country.
I wonder if I could ask if any of you have an estimate of how many people are undocumented in Canada and how many you anticipate might want to apply if a program is opened.
One of the major concerns is that there is no good estimate of how many undocumented people there are. The range estimate is from 20,000 to 500,000.
20,000 to 500,000? I mean, come on, they don't even know what they're talking about here, and yet they're advocating for something which would completely undermine Canada's immigration system. Take a look at some of the comments here. I thought we had an immigration system. In fact, I know we do because I spent years going through it legally. How can we grant permanent residence on land you apparently don't own because it's unceded? And here's Professor Eric Kaufman. The culture war is not a sideshow. Woke attacks on the national past are used to justify the open borders agenda. And here's an interesting comment that I wasn't expecting to see, coming from independent MP Kevin Vuong. Reminder, Kevin Vuong was a former Liberal MP who's now asking to join the Conservative caucus under Pierre Poilievre. My parents spent 2 years in a refugee camp before being welcomed to Canada. They didn't want to be there, but they respected the rules. There must be consequences when people break the law. Granting PR to line jumpers is unfair to all who waited and encourages more violations. Easy there, Kevin. Talk like that regarding immigration might even find you outside of the scope of the current Conservative Party of Canada. And to double down on the mass immigration agenda, Mark Miller announced that Canada will now be taking 5,000 Gazan refugees, not 1,000 like we were told earlier. This is all part of Canada's humanitarian response to the situation going on in Gaza. Now, what does Canada get for showing all that support to Israel? Well, we get to receive the Gazans, who so far have shown so much love and affection to this great country of ours. Never mind the shootings we've seen at Jewish schools and the chants in our streets about how Canada has blood on its hands.
Free Palestine! You have blood on your hands, Justin!
I'm sure they'll be going to the local hockey rink for some shinny and singing Gordon Lightfoot as soon as they land in Canada. It is a little strange, however, that no Arab country wants to take in Gazans. You know, people who are actually part of that culture, Muslims. Iran, Qatar, Turkey, Malaysia, Kuwait, Algeria, Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, and Iraq. Why don't they want to take these Muslim refugees? France won't even take them, and there are parts of France that might as well be Gaza. The Liberal MPs, of course, they're all in support of this, because they need the votes from the Muslims in this country. Conservative MPs, they talk a lot about what's going on in Canadian streets and the encampments and the protests, but I have yet to hear any Conservative MPs say they don't want to take in any Gazan refugees. Weird. Why can't they just say that? The only political leader in Canada who's really spoken out about this happens to be Maxime Bernier of the PPC. There are 22 Arab countries. Why won't any of them take them in? Why don't Palestinians stay in their corner of the world in societies with the same religion and a similar culture? Why is Canada obliged to welcome all the wretched of the earth? It's a completely fair argument. You'd be quite hard-pressed to make the argument that a Gazan would better fit in Canada than they would in, say, Qatar. Nothing we can do about it because the federal Liberals don't actually care what you think when it comes to immigration. 5,000 new culturally enriching Gazan refugees are on their way to a city near you. And if all of that wasn't enough, the federal government is going to grant citizenship status to foreigners born to a foreign-born Canadian citizen.
Under the new legislation, children born abroad to a Canadian citizen who is also born outside Canada will be a Canadian citizenship from birth if their parent can demonstrate they have a substantial connection to Canada. As long as a Canadian parent who was born outside of Canada has accumulated 3 years of time spent in Canada before the birth of the child, they'll be able to pass down their citizenship to their child. Finally, we wanted to take this opportunity to continue to minimize differential outcomes as much as possible for children born abroad and adopted by Canadians compared to children born to Canadians.
What does all this mean? Well, let me just break it down for you with a hypothetical. Let's just pick a random country. Say India. You've come to Canada as an Indian. You've used the international student system as a backdoor entryway to get your PR status. After 3 years of being a permanent resident, you then qualify for your citizenship, which you can now conveniently take online. You're now a Canadian citizen entitled with all of the benefits that come with citizenship. You go back home to India, and you marry an Indian. You live in India, You don't speak any English. There's nothing really Canadian about you other than the fact that you have Canadian citizenship. You have 4 or 5 children. All of those children are now immediately granted Canadian citizenship. As long as those new Canadians, who are supposed to pretend are as Canadian as you or I, go to Canada for 3 years and then go somewhere else to a different country, their children will also be granted Canadian citizenship. It's completely ridiculous what this federal government is doing. Do they really not think this will create some sort of market to buy and sell Canadian citizenship in foreign countries? Of course it will. They're making citizenship easier to obtain and now opening it up to children who are born outside of the country to foreign-born Canadian citizens. Most importantly for the Liberals, these new Canadians will all be able to vote, and they'll also all be able to receive Canadian healthcare. If you're a normal person, this past Tuesday would have just been a regular Tuesday. But if you happen to be a Liberal MP, Tuesday, May 28th, was Menstrual Hygiene Day. Ew. And on Menstrual Hygiene Day, you wear a bracelet the length of a menstrual cycle. According to Liberal Cabinet Minister Ahmed Hassan, you wear the period bracelet to break the stigma around periods. Now, we could have given it to any Liberal member of Parliament who decided to tweet about Menstrual Hygiene Day. And it wasn't just Liberal MPs. The city of Victoria lit up City Hall in red, as they say, to work towards menstrual equity. They also flew the period flag over City Hall. Thank God Victoria got rid of their John A. Macdonald statue though, right? No, the Ratio of the Week award goes to Liberal MP Terry Beach for this outrageously creepy video he decided to make talking about Menstrual Hygiene Day. 1.3 thousand replies to 88 likes. Quick, everyone in the food bank line, stop what you're doing and pull out your phones and acknowledge that it's Menstrual Hygiene Day. I know you're going hungry, but do your part today to break the stigma around periods. Viva Fry comments, did you just invite my daughter into your constituency to get products for her menstrual hygiene? Seriously, is that what you just did in this video? Dad Sad replied, so empathetic, albeit I was disappointed that Terry Beach implied that only girls and women menstruate. Menstruation is a human right that affects men, women, and all other sexes. And how about this comment here? I've been seeing non-stop posts today about period day. But honestly, why didn't they just let women MPs post the videos and the dudes just retweet so we don't have to be mansplained about periods from all these random MPs? Just a message to all those young, aspiring politicians who want to join the Liberal Party one day. You're going to be stuck behind the backbench because you're not diverse enough for the Liberals, and you're going to end up having to post videos like this and be embarrassed for the rest of your life. All right, everyone, that's going to do it for us this week on the show. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Harrison Faulkner, and this is Ratio.